All right, hi everyone. Welcome to the solved problems video for chapter 13. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to do problem 1 from the textbook, and then I'm going to rework a variation of problem 1. What problem 1 is on the practice problems is all about looking at a product structure tree to make a bill of materials so that we can see how many of each of these subcomponents are needed to make 100 units of product W. So product W is the end product. This is the a computer or a chair or whatever it is we actually make. And then within that, we have all these subcomponents, and a certain amount of them are used to complete 1 unit of product W. Well, then those subcomponents have either raw materials or subcomponents themselves, and you need a certain quantity of those to make that subcomponent, and so on to various levels. So at the top of this product structure tree, we have the level 0, which is our main component, and then everything that goes into that directly is at level 1, and then everything that goes into that directly is at level 2, and then you've got and so on. So let's look at how this would come together. What we're going to do is we're going to start by looking at the main product, and within that, we're going to look at the components that go into it, or subcomponents, either way. So the main product is level 0, and then you've got 3 level 1 products that go into that. And based on the structure tree, we see that any letter that doesn't have a number after it is just the number 1. There's 1 A for every W, there are 2 B's for every W, and there's 4 C's for every W. And that's what we've got written down here in our requirements section right here. We need 1 of that, 2 of that, 4 of that. So if we're going to make 100 of them, we would need 100 times 1 for product A, 100 times 2 for product B, and 100 times 4 for product C. So in this first box here, we're going to take the 100, lock it in, and multiply by the cell right to our left. Then we're just going to drag it down to the bottom here. Okay. So we've got our first section done. This is all of our component level 0, which is our main board. That's done. We know we need 100 A's, 200 B's, and 400 C's. All right, well, now we're to look at, if you look on the top of each of these next 3, we have subcomponent 1 listed, and within that, level 2's listed. So 1 product A takes, as we can see on our sheet here, 2 D's and 1 E. Okay, so we've got 2 D's, 1 E. For every product B, we need 2 E's and an F. All right, so 2 E's and an F. And then every product C takes 3 D's and 2 G's. And that's what we have here. So we're going to do the exact same thing we just did, except we're not going to refer to the W up here. We're going to refer to this letter, basically 1 level above it. So we're looking at a level 1 item, A, and we know that we need 2 D's for every A. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 100 from the A section above it. All right, this is level 1 A's. The net need of that is 100 of them. And so we're going to have 100 of them times 2. So let's lock that in, multiply it by the 2 here. And this tells us for every 100 A's, we know we're going to need 200 D's just to make that product. And then we can drag this down to say that we're going to need 100 E's as well. So when you're looking at this, if we were doing this quickly, even mentally, you don't really need a calculator for some of these. What's happening here is that every time you take 1 step down the tree, you're multiplying the number of requirements as you go. So for example, W is 1, A is 1, 1 times 1 is 1, and then 1 times 1 times 2 is 2. So for every W, you need 2 D's from that portion of it. Now, if you look, there's going to be more D's needed here, more D's needed here. We'll add those together. So I'm going to finish it out in Excel, and then I'm going to jump over and I'm just going to write it out by hand as we go down the tree and solve it manually. But that's what's happening. You're just multiplying it times each number down each branch of the tree, effectively. All right. So every level B, we need 2 E's and 1 F. So let's see how many B's do we need. It's 200 right here. This is how many B's we need. So we're going to take equals 200 here from this section, lock it in, multiply it by the 2 here, and then drag it down once. And we're going to do the same thing for C's. For every C, we need 3 D's and 2 G's. So we'll look at how many C's we need. It's 400. Lock it in, multiply it by 3 here, and then drag it down. And we can see we need 2 times 400, which is 800 G's for every C. Now we've got one final level. You see that there's a second level, so level 3 down here. Level 1, level 2, level 3. So subcomponent level 3, we need 1 D for every G that we make. So let's look to the level above us, level 2, and see that we're making G's here is 800 of them. So I'm going to do equals 800 times 1. So we need another 800 D's here. And so if you look at all the total A's we need, you can count and say that, okay, A only appears one time here and I need 100. So for every 100 W's, I need 100 A's. B only appears here because it's a second level item. So B's, I need 200 total. C's, I need 400 total. But then you get down to the next level, and you can see that you use D's to make A's, you use D's to make C's, and you use D's to make G's. So you'd look and see I need 200 plus 1200 plus 800, which if you do the math there adds up to 2200. So as you're going, you're basically just counting all of each of the letters. Well, we have a formula that'll do that for us. It's called sum if. Add them together if you find this criteria within this range of cells. So what we're going to do is we're going to type out equals sum if. All right, and we're going to, I type in sum if. The first thing it asks you is for the range. The range is going to be this section right here. Lock it in, comma, the criteria is, so within that range, do I find the cell right here to my left of my formula? So looking for W, then looking for A, then looking for all the way through G. I don't lock that in because I want, as I copy this down, I do not want this range to move. I only want the component that it's looking for in the criteria to move. The comma, and the sum range, that's going to be over here on the far end. So this entire section over here, we're going to lock that in. So look in this area. If you find the letter W, then add up all of the needs across over here, okay? So I should find 100 because there's only 100 there, 100. And if I copy this down, we can just check the math. So A's, I only need 100, right? B's, I need 200. C's, I need 400. If you remember, when we added up all the D's, we got 200 plus 1200 is 1400. 1400 plus 800 is 2200. E's, we've got 100 E's here and 400 E's here. That's 500. F's, there's 200 here. G's, there's 800 here. So it worked. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to making the bill of materials with that product structure tree. We're recording the net need of each of these. Well, what happens if I have some of, well, let's take a pause. Let's go back to that. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to show you how we could solve the same problem by hand. So I'm going to write on the screen here, and pardon me. The question is, how many of each do I need to make 100 W's? So let's write in 100 here, because that's our need. And we just follow it down. So 100 times 1 is 100. 100 times 2 is 200. And that's really all there is to it. You're just writing the number as you're doing the math. You start with 100 at the top. You need 100 of them. It takes 1 A for every one of that. So 100 times 1 is 100. It takes 2 D's for every A. I need 100 A's, so that means I need 200 D's. Follow it down here. 100 times 1 is 100. Now 100 times 2 is 200. Pardon me. 200 times 2 is 400. 200 times 1 is 200. 100 times 4, I need 4 C's for every 1 W, and I need 100 W's, so I need 400 C's total. 400 times 3 is 1200. 400 times 2 is 800. and 800 times 1 is 800. And then you just add them up. So how many W's do I need? I need 100 total. How many A's? 100 total. How many B's? 200 total. How many C's? 400 total. How many D's? We've got 200 plus 1200, which is 1400. And then 1400 plus 800 is, 800 is 2200. How many E's do I need? I find them here and here. So I need 500. 100, 1 and 400 together are 500. F's 200. And then G's 800. And that's all there is to it. As long as you have, this is the gross needs. This is how many we need to make 100 W's. Now we can move on to the next part of the problem, which is what if I have some materials on hand already? What if I had 35 A's already on hand? What if I had 120 C's on hand, 350 D's on hand, 250 G's on hand? Well, then we have a gross need effectively here. This is how many we need total, but I have some already on hand. Let's make a whole new problem for ourselves. So in this one, we already have some A's, C's, D's, and G's, which means it's going to have a cumulative effect down the branch. If I need fewer C's and I'm multiplying the number of C's times 300 or times 3 here, well, that's going to be a huge effect on the number of D's total that I need, a huge effect on the number of G's total I need, and so on. So let's solve this one. But what we can do on this one is figure out just the gross needs for each one of these to start, and then we're going to plug in how many we have on hand. And for this one, we're not going to go past this first one until we've solved the net need in this section. So it starts out the same way. I've got 100, lock it in, times 1, and copy it down. All right. Now we run into a situation where I have some A's and some C's on hand already. So because of that, I can plug in up to as many A's as I have on hand into this section, as long as the gross need isn't more than I have, in which case I can use some of them here and I can use some of them below. But I can only use up to 35 A's total. So what I mean by that is I need 100. I have 35, perfect. I'm going to use all of them. Now, if I had 150, I would only use 100 of them and I would keep 50 on hand for the next time. Or if I needed more A's down below, I could use the other 50 there. So I'm just going to plug in what I have. I have 35 on hand. B's, I have none on hand already. C's, I have 120. Okay. So I need 400. So I'm going to plug in 120 here. And now we're going to create a new column, which is the net need. So what we did before was effectively the gross need. This is what we need total. But if we have some of them, then we can subtract what we have from what we need. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as just subtracting at the very end because of that effect of how much it affects the branches below. Otherwise, we could just take that many off our total. But it doesn't work out that way. We actually end up needing a lot fewer D's. You're going to see, even though we have 350 D's, and we, here need 2,200 D's, it's not going to be just simply 2,200 minus 350. There's more to it than that because it, has an exponential effect as it goes down the line. So in the first section and all of these sections, your gross need minus your on hand will be your net need, but you do one level at a time before you move down it. So 100 minus 35 is 65. 200 minus 0 is 200. 400 minus 120 is 280. So now, when I go to the next level, I'm going to refer to the level above and look at the net need from that level instead of the gross need. So every A requires 2 D's. Well, I have 65 A's on hand. So instead of multiplying 2 times 100, like we did in the first example, I'm going to multiply the 2 times this 65 right here. So I need 65, lock it in, multiply by 2, and then drag that down. And for this part, A, B, and C are all on the same level, whereas main product was on level 0. So I am going to do all of A, B, and C before I move on to level G. E, I need 200 B's still, so lock that in times 2. And drag it down. And then D's, I need 3 of them for every C. I need 280 C's. So I'm going to hit equals the 280 from the higher level C right here. Lock it in and multiply it by 3, and then drag it down. So now I can figure out my on hand and allocate my on hand into my net need before I move on to the third level of D's down here. So I've used my on hand. I want to update this list as I go. I've used my 35, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. I can't use it anymore. C's, I've used all 120, so I'm going to delete that. That way I don't accidentally try to allocate it twice when it's just one set of inventory. And you'll see why that's important here. So this is not going to be part of the problem. This is just kind of record keeping for yourself. You can do this off of the Excel sheet or on the Excel sheet. This will not be part of the actual problem. Again, it's just so that you can help keep track of it. I'm doing it for the video. So D's, I need 130. Well, I have 350. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allocate 130 of them here. And then E's, I don't have any, so I'm just going to leave that blank. And I'm going to do the same formula equals this minus this. And in fact, this formula is the same all the way down. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it to all these cells so you can see it updating automatically as I update them. Okay, so I've used 130 of the D's here. I can't use another 350 right here anymore. I can only use the difference between 350 and 130. I only have 220 left. So I'm just going to update that list. I only have 220 D's left. Great. Now I'll know that when I get down to the next section. And we can put a 0 here just to show that we've done this section already. We don't have any on hand. That's fine. E's. Do I have any E's on hand? No, I don't. So nothing changes there. F's. Do I have any F's on hand? No, I don't. So I don't put any there. D's. I have 220 remaining. I've used 130 of them here. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in all 220 because this number is more than 220. So I've used all the D's up. G's, I've got 250. I need 560, so let's use up all 250 of them here. Great. And then we have no more on-hand inventory. Everything else we're going to have to produce. Okay, so we've updated all of this all the way down to the next level. So we did all that together because it was all subcomponent level 1, figuring out how many materials we needed. Now, subcomponent level 2, we look to above this, we have a net need of 310 product G's, so equal 310 times 1. And I have no product D left, so I'm just going to plug in 0 on that. And now we have a net need that's much less than the original list. So when we make this list here with our sum if formula, lock in the same range, lock it in with F4, comma, criteria will be still the component directly to my left in that cell, comma, and then it'll be the net need column over here. So lock in this range on the far right, lock it in, and hit enter. And when I drag this down, you'll see total A's that I need is 65. Originally, it was 100. B's was 200, C's was 400. Now B is 200, C is 280. So the math worked out directly on this level, but then D's, we needed 220 of product D before, and now we only need 930. So our 350 we had on hand ended up having a huge effect because of we needed to make fewer letter C components, and then the way that it worked out down the row, I just had that exponential effect on it. So yeah, that's that. And how would we do that by hand though? All right. So let's do the same problem, but by hand, and I'll go ahead and write in the amount we have on hand over here. We have 35 of those, 120 of those, 350 of those, and 250 of those. And I want to point out something before I start doing that. Let's say that you didn't want to do 130 of it here and 220 of it here. You can simply look for the one usage of D that's above what you have on hand. This is above 350, so I could actually allocate all 350 here, and that number will come out the same because they're on the same level. It won't come out the same if it's the level below. or some of the other ones will come out the same if it's a little below. So because this is a subcomponent 2 level, I can use all the D's here on subcomponent 2, and it'll come out and work out the same. All right, so let's work this problem once again, but this time completely by hand. And we'll probably bust out the calculator for this one. All right, so we need 100 of product W still, nothing changed there. We need to go to the next level and multiply 100 times 1 once again. So it's 100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do minus 35 because we have 35 on hand. And that's going to equal 65. And then however you want to do this to show that you've done the math already is fine, but I'm just going to go ahead and scratch through to show that we've done the math and we only need 65. And then because it's on paper, I'm just going to scratch that out, or I would have erased it to show that I've used up all of product A. Now 100 times 2 is 200. I don't have any of product B on hand, so I'll just leave that alone. 100 times 4 is 400. But I have 120, so I'm going to subtract 120. I get 280. Scratch that out. I've used all 120 of this. Now let's start by going across and doing all of the next level before we allocate, because we've got product D here and here. So 65 times 2 is 130. 65 times 1 is 65. 200 times 2 is 400. 200 times 1 is 200. All right, now not 400, but 280 times 3 is 840. Okay. 200 times 3 is 600, 80 times 3 is 240, 600 and 240 is 840, yep. 280 times 2 is 560. And then we're not going to move on to the next level. We're going to finish this level before we move on to product D here. Now, like I said, you can allocate this 350 anywhere you want. You could put 100 of it here and 250 of it here, all 130 here, 220 here. But again, the easiest way is going to be if I just put all 350 of it to right here, probably. Because then I only have to subtract one time. So why don't we go ahead and do that? 840 minus 350. And that should be 490. Right? All of product D is used up. Product G, I have 250. I needed 560, so let's subtract 250. And we've got 310. Used up all my product G. So now 310 times 1 is still 310. And you can see this goes to here, this goes to here. That's all part of that. Just to show how the number, oops. That one. All the numbers that are scratched out, we don't need at all. So then it's about counting it up like we did before. I need 100 of product W, and I can slide this over just a little bit. Let's copy these figures, the values of them right over here, so we can see that they should match up. All right, those all match up. All right. So let's see if these all match up. 100 W's, yes. 65 A's, yes. 200 B's, yes. 280 of C, yep. D, so we've got 130 of it here. Oops. 130 plus 490 here, plus, and then 310 here. Yeah, 930 total, matches up. Product E, 400 here and 65 here. That's 465, matches up. F, we need 200 here. Great. G, we need 310 here. Perfect. So that's how you do it by hand. You just subtract as you go down each level. So for your quiz purposes or whatnot, that's how you would do it. So two options there. And that's all that we're going to cover as far as the quantitative work on this chapter. So we'll see you in chapter 14. Thanks, everybody.